Welcome to Heart Talks with Dr. Gloria. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Thomas Anderson, and I am so excited to have our very special guest, Mr. Frankie Wilson, join us today. And I'm going to share just a little bit of his bio just so you can see how awesome he is. Mr. Frankie Wilson is an international and award-winning syndicated radio personality. In addition to his 20-year career in media and philanthropy, he now travels the world as a host, a writer, public speaker, and as an entrepreneur. He also has a BA in mass media communications, an MBA, Masters of Divinity, and is completing his PhD in psychology for applied behavioral analysis. This is a Black man that has some resilience, amen. Hi, Frankie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on here, Dr. Gloria.
You are so welcome. You are so welcome. I was looking at your website a little bit earlier, and I was just blessed by some of the testimonials that I'm going to read a few of those just to ask you a couple of questions around it.
Sure.
The first one said, Frankie truly brings out the best in other people. His kindness is a balm to all who encounter it. A man with integrity, wisdom, and authenticity, a phenomenal influencer for today's generation. His ability to creatively inspire, encourage, and motivate others through his words are special. He has a heart for people that is admirable. And so on that note, you know, the name of my company is Heart Tones, right? Heart Tones.
Yeah.
I'm all about the heart. I'm all
Absolutely.
about the heart. I've always been about the heart. And when God gave me Heart Tones, it was in 1986 actually, and I was going through a divorce. I had two small girls, Tracy and Tammy. They're not small anymore. They got families of their own. I've got grandkids and all. But I was really going through a hard time. And when God put Heart Tones in my heart, it was for me to inspire and encourage. And I think that's why when I read that in your testimonials, those words, inspire, encourage, heart, all of those things mean so much to me, because as I've worked in ministry, sharing from my heart to help other people be encouraged and inspired, I can see that that's exactly what you've been doing. You have a heart as well, a heart for helping people. And I believe that's a real great gift to have. I want to say that because the work that you're currently doing, part of the work, you're doing so many things, but part of the work that you're currently doing is creating programs for Black boys addressing the effects of complex trauma, which is really a major work to be doing. I want to ask you, what stirred your heart to do that?
Sure. So first off, thanks for reading all of that, saying all of that. Again, it's humbling every time. And I don't hear it much. I try not to focus on accolades and things like that because I don't ever want to be distracted by it, but it's humbling every time to even be recognized like that. In regard to the work that I'm doing, so I obviously am a Black boy, and I've been blessed to be raised in a two-parent home. We had a very good upbringing, and yet we had, some struggles where I was able to experience, I'd say, a little bit of both sides of the road. But even during that time, I was exposed to a lot of different people in my path who I called my friends, some past, some present. And they came from many different backgrounds. And in seeing the effects of those backgrounds that they came from, the environments that they lived in and they never were able to leave and detach from, I watched the effects. I watched how it would affect their psychological, their social, and their academic performance in life. And I watched not only those performances degenerate over time, but a lot of those people are not with us anymore. They've passed. And it has a lot to do not only with the choices that they've made on themselves, but their choices were informed. They were informed by their environments. Yes. And so recognizing that, I was already going into studying psychology for a while, but I got my hands on information about applied behavior analysis, which is the focus that I'm in right now. And the science of behavior is what really helped to get things stirring in my head as to how we can craft a science behind how we either take people out of these environments or how we systematically change them. And we put the power in the hands of the kids as well as the parents the community around them, so on and so forth. So once I realized the power in what I was learning,
Mhm.
I started out learning this to help aid what I did as a speaker. I didn't want to just be one of those that, gave a lot of cliches and
Mhm.
spoke on things that they really didn't know a lot about. And
Yeah.
so at first it was about seeking the knowledge and the understanding to undergird what I was telling people. But over time, purpose was birthed through what I was learning. And so that's pretty much the foundation of why I am doing what I'm doing today.
Right. Well, I have grandsons. I have four, in fact, and they're Black boys. And,
Hmm.
I realize that they are in a world that is not always so pleasant, especially not embracing them as Black boys.
Sure.
And so the work that you're doing there is tremendous, and I applaud you for doing that. Well, one of the things I had written down was that, Black parents are having to teach their sons how to survive in a racist society. How did your parents deal with teaching you around like a double standard that many Black people, we live every day?
Yeah, I have to be honest and say that as I was coming up, there weren't so many conversations about the negativity that was surrounding us more than there were conversations about the opportunities that we had made available to us, additional opportunities that we could create for ourselves and others if we followed these certain behaviors, if we followed this certain path. There were things that we were taught, like the power of prayer, the importance of discipline, how to see a thing all the way through, to always be honest, to always be kind. And these things kind of served as a bit of protection. But in my later years, I use that term very loosely, talking to my mother in these past years, I've learned a lot. She's told me stories about how you kids you really don't have any idea just how protected you were.
Yeah.
And so, that there's something to say about that, in the fact that my parents really taught us principles
Mhm.
while they were protecting us. And knowing that we were going to have to face this ourselves at some day,
Right.
they had faith in the fact that the principles they were teaching us were going to help to keep us. It is most with what we can control at the very least. They were going
Yeah.
to help to keep us in a place to, where we were able to strive and thrive.
Yes. Yeah. I grew up in the 60s. I grew up in an urban environment. And in our community, we didn't really talk about racism either. I just remember, though, my parents buying a home in Missouri, in Kansas City, Missouri, their very first home. I was in the kindergarten. And I remember all of these white people in that neighborhood, our new neighborhood, moving out. I remember
Mhm.
the white flight that happened. I
Mhm.
know you probably studied that too.
Oh yeah.
And I had the neighbors, we played up together. Kids, we didn't think about them being different than us. And I remember, I'll call them Jim and Joan. They were, they didn't want to move. And I was like, well, why are you guys moving? They had the prettiest house on the block. And I was like, why are you moving? And they were like, well, our parents said that we're moving to a better neighborhood.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it took, when I grew up, though, we didn't learn about any of this in school because our schools were segregated. A lot of the information we got was not information that was accurate or truths about who we
Sure.
were, our history, where we came from, why we were strong, how we became strong, all of those factors that really go into who we are as African Americans in this
That's
country.
right.
And so I didn't learn about racism or white privilege or any of those terms until I was in my master's program in
Mhm.
college. I didn't learn it in undergraduate. So I'm really excited about the fact that you are working with young Black men because they need to know who they are,
That's
right?
right.
They need to know who they are. They need to know where they come from, that they have worth, that they have value. And unfortunately, that's not the message that many of them hear on a day-to-day basis. They're not as
Absolutely.
blessed as you and I have been in terms of, being able to hear that from positive sources.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I honestly believe that a lot of the things that we're seeing happening, even in today's climate, with the deaths, the killings, the overt racism, the covert systematic racism that we're experiencing, I don't think that everything is just by freak coincidence. I don't think that things are just randomly happening overall. I do believe that there are some things that are happening on purpose and with purpose.
Yeah.
And a lot of the, when you look at the totality of everything that our children are experiencing, our young people are experiencing, one of the outcomes you could possibly expect is if I'm diminishing the value of your life through my actions, and you don't yet know how to define the value of your life, you will take what definition is given to you. And so if you're constantly inundated with these things that are happening around you and you don't have someone to help fight against that idea, then it's going to ultimately depress that sense of pride, that sense of optimism that is in our children. And it's going to create a certain type of person in the future. So that's a part of why I believe it's so important to get them while they're young. A second ago, when you were talking about who you are and how we were taught these things and who we are, who to be.
Yes.
I truly believe that you may teach what you know in life. You may act out the things that you've learned, but in all things you will reproduce who you are. And so if you have not gone through some sort of, if you've not experienced some sort of lesson, some sort of education to help mold you and shape you into who would be the best type of the most ideal version of yourself is, then you're susceptible to just about anything, and you'll start to reproduce that in things. If I'm taught to be bad, I will reproduce bad in my life. If I'm taught to be less than, I will reproduce the actions of a person that does not value themselves.
That's right. Yeah, all of that is so critical. I was thinking about how I didn't get, when I was growing up, I didn't get accolades from other people, you know what I mean? I didn't.
Sure. Yeah.
It was something that I do believe. My grandma said to me before she passed, she was 103 when she died, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. But she told me one Sunday morning when I called her, she said, baby, I called her because I play the keyboard. I'm not a musician. I see you do music.
But I play keyboard though. Yeah, I play keyboard too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I play
awesome.
it, but I'm self-taught. I'm self-taught, so it's just me and God kind of
I hear
worship.
you.
It's not
Yeah.
where I play for any group or anything.
Got you.
But I called my grandma one Sunday morning, and I just said I want to play. It was "I'm So Grateful" was the song. I'm so great. I don't know. I know you probably know it's an old song, and it's that I'm grateful that I've got Christ in my life. And that song, she told me, she said, baby, when you were a little girl, when you were coming down here to the country, 5 or 6 years old, she said, I always knew that you belonged to God in a way, that you were going to be a minister for him. And she never told me that. I was way up in age. My girl's grown and everything, but she said that she saw that. And I believe that what we have to do is nurture what somebody sees in us early on. That's my
Absolutely.
point. That children, we see beautiful things. I see my grandsons and my granddaughters, and I see all the gifts that God has blessed them with. And I try, knowing how important it is, because I didn't really get a lot of nurturing in terms of you can do this, you can do that. It was more like, I don't know, it was innate. It was something God gave me to do. And I think that's why it's so important for me to use my life to inspire and encourage others. I love to see people have hope. I love to see them, be inspired. And that's what you do too in the work that you're doing. You want to see people inspired and have hope. And I believe that people need that no matter who they are.
Absolutely. I feel like hope is the fuel to our fight. There's always a reason to have optimism. One of the things I love as well, when I was growing up, I was really blessed. My mother's entire side of the family are all ministers and educators. My father's entire side of the family, musicians. And so I was always in an environment that encouraged me to do things that were in line with the will of God and the Spirit of God. And I was always prayed for and taught these great things about myself according to or based off of what we know about God. And I bring that up because there are some people that don't know what to do and they don't have access to the programs yet. And that is where the organizations or structures like the church can come in, and they can provide these things that we may not be equipped to handle on our own. I was talking about how you can reproduce who you are, and it has a lot to do with what's put inside of you and what you're told about yourself. What you're told, helps to make you who you are. Well, if you're always told that you come from and you are offspring of and you are connected to the greatest power that's ever been known and ever will be known, well, where else can you go but up from there? And that's one of the things that the church does by design. So, just that encouragement to people that are watching this, even that if you always have a resource available.
Yes. Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
You're blessed. And I know that on your website, I also read that you said we're blessed to be a blessing.
That's right.
What about those people? And I know that you are blessed. You are a successful businessman, you're an entrepreneur, personality, and speaker. What would you say to those Black men who don't feel so blessed right now, who are really struggling and who, are going through really hard and tough times and maybe didn't get the messaging that you were blessed to have? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I believe that you are guaranteed to find whatever you look for the hardest, and you're also guaranteed to miss what you're not. And so as long as you are focused on what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with your life, what you did not have available to you, the opportunities that are not in front of you right now, that's all you're going to reproduce, because that's all you're going to find. If we were to just talk about how our brains work, there's a thing, called the reticular activating system, where it pretty much, whatever you tell it to focus on, that's the thing it focuses on, and it sees nothing else but that thing. It's just like when you get a new car, you get on the freeway and all you see is that new car.
Yes.
Because that's the thing that you focused on for that time. There's a power in your focus and what you choose to focus on.
Yes.
And I use that word very intentionally, because although we do believe that we're a product of our environments, there's something to say about a person that willingly changes the things that are surrounding them in order to have them focus on something new. So if I focus on life happening for me, not simply to me, then that changes my perspective.
Right.
And it's not about being happy all the time. It's about knowing that there's always another way. There's always something available right around the corner. And not only that, but that if we own our parts, and this is a platform that I live on, is that we have to own our actions in order to create ideal experiences in our lives. So if we own what we can do about it, as opposed to offering up responsibility that doesn't belong to us, and we'll be able to change things and make things better. But you can't change something that does not belong to you.
I teach a human behavior class, and we talk about social conditioning as, how that impacts us all through our environment from the time we're born, actually, even before we're born. We know the Bible says that we were formed in our mother's womb in Psalm 139, I believe. That's even before we were actually born.
Yeah.
So there's a purpose for us being here. And one of the things that happens so often is that people come into this world, they don't come in the world any particular way. They don't come in as racist, they don't come in as prejudiced, they don't come in any particular way. But as you start to be whoever is around you, whatever you're hearing, whatever you're seeing, right, those things influence and start to be a part of your development. So you're right, at some point as a child, you really don't have control over what you see and hear, maybe those circumstances. But as you come into your own self and starting to learn and to grow, you have to be open. Your mind has to be open. You have to start to see things differently than the way it's been presented to you, or even the way that you've experienced it. In order for it to change. So it begins with our minds. It begins with changing our minds. And how do we change that? The Bible tells us that we have to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, right? That renewal process is not necessarily a natural thing, because it often combats or comes against the exact thing that you are seeing and feeling and experiencing in reality in the natural realm. With God, we can do it. I mean, he says we can do all things through Christ, who strengthens us, and that with him all things are possible. There's something deep and rich and beautiful about knowing that you're not a mistake, that no matter what the experiences you experience, right?
That's right.
That you're not a mistake, that life is just what it is, but God can make that, and he wants us to have abundant life and wellness and all that is good. You mentioned something else about you don't have to be happy. You remember you just said that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you don't, it's not about doing what always makes you happy, because happy is a fleeting emotion, as the majority of all emotions are.
Yes.
What I honestly often speak about is seeking out what I call eternal gifts, fruits of the Spirit. You seek out the things that are connected to a source that cannot give it and cannot take it away.
Yes.
So things like joy, things like peace, these are things that the world can't give, the world can't take away. They are connected to a source that is eternal. Those are the things that help to sustain you when you're going through tough times.
That's right.
Those are the things that help to give you an overcomer's spirit and ideology and mindset, to have those types of fruits of the Spirit working in you at all times.
Yes. Yes.
And it's important because life is not easy, just flat out. It's not easy.
People can make it look easy, and they can, we look at people and we make assumptions that, oh, they've got it made. I don't know if you've heard that, but I've heard it. Oh, she's got it made, or he's got it made, but no one has it made in this world. We all have to go through trials and tribulation and troubles, but you're right. We have to stay focused on what is good and what is perfect and what is from above, what God has given us from above. And the fruit of the Spirit is exactly the thing that we need in order to sustain us through all of the things that don't go right in our lives, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
These are the things that give us the hope that we need. These are the things, and that's important because I believe I know that there are so many people in this world, old and especially young, with young African-American boys between the ages of 8 and 20. I believe right now the number 3 leading cause of death is suicide. Hope is a real issue for people. And so to give them this, these keys as to what to focus on to help them make it through and to maintain that hope is paramount. It's everything. I want to go back to something I said a second ago when I was talking about how you can't bring a problem to the altar that does not belong to you. And how you have to own that thing first. If you're blaming someone else, if you're blaming a scenario, if you're blaming how hard things have been, what that is you're taking the currency of your hope and your faith and your belief and even your future, and you are giving it away. You're not even investing it into something, because the principles of investing mean that you give back some form of interest and some sort of payoff. You are instead divesting all of those things and, giving them to something else. And that something else owns it from that point forward, and God can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to own what's going on. You have to own the fact that, I'm dealing with with depression, with substance abuse, or I have issues with relationships. Whatever the thing is, I can't seem to stay happy because so much is happening around me, and I don't know how to keep my mind together. You have to be able to own the fact that those are issues in order to address them. That's spiritually and that's professionally. For those that believe in going and seeking professional help, you talk with them all the time. So I know that you probably agree with me when I say this, how important it is for you to take ownership of what it is you're dealing with. You cannot fight an enemy that you do not first identify.
And that enemy is against our soul, that wants to steal, kill, and destroy. We know that. And so our minds are the place that starts many times, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have to guard our minds. We have to guard our hearts, and we have to make sure that we're feeding ourselves the right messages. And then you're right, it's in terms of acknowledging what is going on in our life. There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, that's a form of strength.
That's right.
To say, yeah, I own this. This is what is really going on in my head and my heart. But at the same time, you don't have to hold to that. You want to acknowledge it, but you can let it go, and God can help you revamp that and refocus and change the direction of anything in your life when we yield it to Him. But we do have to admit that this is an issue that we need to address.
Yes, yes. I want to make it really clear for some of the young men that may be watching this. I talk to young men all the time that are athletes, and when you have not been working out for so long, your muscles start to get weak. You have to admit, I'm not as strong as I used to. I need to work out my delts. I need to work out my traps. I need to work out these different things in order to get strong. And guess what? Identifying what you need to work out is the first step to getting stronger. That's what we're saying here. You got to identify it in order for you to get stronger.
Yes. In terms of the message for men, and I know our topic was basically on being strong for Black men and the resilience that they have. But first I want to ask two things. Where do you draw your strength from? And then secondly, what words of inspiration and encouragement would you give to Black men on this Father's Day?
The first thing, as far as what I pull from, I'm so grateful for the relationships that I have spiritually, as well as emotionally and physically. My connection with God, my connection with my family, my friends, and my loved ones, having a village that actually cares for real and knows who I am is, it's everything. Because there's a lot that I do on my own, and there's a lot that I do when I'm having to deal with the burdens of someone else's cross. And so to help them to carry that, that can drain you. And so I'm so grateful for all of my circle that surrounds me, both above me and here on this earth. And I would encourage every father out there and every son that's listening to this right now, that's watching this right now, to help to share that same ideal with one another. One of the things that my father did covertly was to teach me how important it was to work hard, to stand by your word, whatever you did, to be excellent at what you did. My dad excelled at everything he touched. Everywhere he went, he was really good. And to leave a lasting impression with the people that you love. There's not a day, my dad's not with us now. He's 5, almost 6 years past. And there's not a day that I don't see the impact of his influence on my mother's life, on my siblings' lives, on my nephews and nieces and people all around them. I'm grateful for the father that I am. And everything that he taught me. And I mean, I'm a junior and I wear my name very proud.
Yes.
I make sure, even when it comes down to just the pronunciation of saying Frankie and not Frank, not Franklin, not Francis, Frank, because I'm very proud of the name that I carry. And I work really hard, honestly, to put power behind that name and to make it something that others will be proud to see, to know about, and prayerfully one day to even carry.
Yes, amen, amen.
Yeah.
That's right. That's beautiful.
But we have to start with one, giving what we have that's within us. And if there is something that's missing, we got to admit it so that we can build on it and we can get help to be able to fix those things, build on those things. You got to remember, no matter what you teach, you're going to reproduce what's in you. It doesn't matter who you set your sons with during the day. If they come back home to experiencing that spirit that you carry and experiencing those emotions that you carry, whether you're silent about it or not, they are going to have an effect on your boys. And so in order for us to help teach them, it's more than putting a gun in their hand. It's more than just talking to them about hate every day, because there's something to say about those that you teach how to put a pen, a pencil, a book in their hand and teach about love every day as well. So there has to be a balance, and there has to be a place where you are willing to do work on yourself in order to make give a better future, provide a better future for our kids.
Yeah. Well, amen. This was great. It was great to meet you. Great to talk to you.
You're the same. This was fast.
Yeah, it's just like, wow, you know, the things that you're working on are so critical and so needful. Thank you so much for being a guest on Heart Talks.
Thank you so much again for having me. I look forward to coming back again and praying the best for you and for everyone that's connected with this show, that great things will continue to come from it. Be blessed.
Thank you. God bless you too. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for being a part of this special Heart Talks. In closing, I want to do something kind of different. It's Father's Day, and I have a wonderful father. I want to honor and give tribute to my own dad, Mr. O.C. Adger. He's a minister. He's been a resilient Black man who has always been there providing for us when we were growing up, protecting us, and he's still a blessing to us. And I'm thankful for you, Dad. So happy Father's Day. And to all the other fathers out there, and even if you're not a father, happy Father's Day to you, just for being who you are, that God created you in his image, that he has great things for you. We all support you. Continue to stay strong and continue to hold on to God's unchanging hand, as my grandma used to say. God bless you all, and I'll see you next Sunday.